You've probably heard me talking about this self-sufficient living skills bundle that's been going on. And I have been spending the last week flipping through so many of the incredible resources within this bundle. Now, I will say there's a lot. There's over 118 different ebooks and courses and lessons sharing incredible wisdom and knowledge with you so you can live off the land and you don't have to rely on this corrupt and broken system for everything for your family. Anyways, I wanted to share some of my favorite things. One, first off, is off-grid homeopathy. This course is loaded with so much incredible knowledge, talking about homeopathy for first aid, for colds and flu, how to make your own homeopathic remedies. Like, as an herbalist who loves to teach that stuff, that's pretty exciting to hear it in the homeopathy realm. There's also some incredible fermentation guides, so many other amazing herbal recipes and food recipes, and how to make your own sourdough bread, how to do your own organic gardening and canning of all of your foods. Really, there is so much. And yes, I know. I've talked about it a ton, but this entire bundle is only $50 right now until Sunday, March 24th. I'm sharing my herbal first aid skills, which is a course that's $47 on its own. I'm sharing recipes that I used when I got my products into REI for herbal first aid kits and so much more. You'll have to check it out. I'm serious. Like, you can absolutely change your life with this bundle. So there is a link in the show notes for you, and I hope you check it out. I hope you take advantage. Don't worry, you don't have to go through everything right away. You can access everything for up to a year. Once you're in the course or have the download, it's yours for life. It is a steal of a deal. Okay, self-sufficient living skills bundle in the links for you. Hello and welcome to the Herbalist Path, a podcast where you'll discover how to make your own herbal remedies at home so that you can take better care of yourself, better care of your family, and better care of our planet. I'm Mel. I'm a clinical herbalist, environmental educator, and mountain living mama with this crazy passion for teaching more mamas and their little loves how to use plants as medicine in a safe, effective, and tasty way so that there can be an herbalist in every home. Again, it's an absolute honor to have you on the journey down the herbalist path with me so that together we can make herbalism #spread like wildflowers. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of The Herbalist Path. I'm really excited because I think this episode is going to introduce me to a whole new friend on a whole nother coast from me. This is Megan Brockelbank I'm having on to interview, and she is a fellow herbalist and environmental and sustainability I'm going to say nerd. I hope you can resonate with nerd, but she cares so much about the planet and the plants and how we are taking care of ourselves holistically. So, Megan, thank you. Welcome to the show, and sorry to cut you off. How do you feel about the term nerd when it comes to sustainability and environmental and herbalism?
I will embrace that term of sustainability and environmental nerd. I'm
awesome.
Definitely plant geek, and that's okay. I'm definitely okay with that.
Yeah, I'm down with it too. I'm always like, yeah, I'm a total herb nerd, and that's okay.
And I don't care.
Yeah, actually, I do care. I love it, and I'm proud of it. So awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to hang out with me on this show. I'm really excited because I think you have so much valuable insight to share with my listeners and ways for them to connect. And I would love to hear just a little bit about how you got into the world of herbalism. It's always so much fun to hear the story from somebody and what inspired it. So if you don't mind, I'd love to hear.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So it was kind of, a lifelong journey. My family growing up was always into gardening. My grandfather on both sides, they were both really into gardening. My grandmother had this huge garden and greenhouse, and I would just spend summers there in the garden and in the greenhouse and working with herbs. She made these lovely herbal wreaths and taught me how to make them at a young age. And so that way I worked with herbs as a kid and like in the garden with plants, right? As a teenager, one of my first jobs was actually for this local nonprofit called Seeds of Solidarity. They did a lot of work trying to get like community gardens in everywhere, like to grow food everywhere. I was one of their first programs doing like teenage mentorship there. So I worked for them one summer, helping them on their farm and doing farmers markets. I think that's kind of where that love for doing farmers markets kind of began for me. But as a teenager, I went to a trade school and was a hairstylist for, like 20 years about. So I stopped doing hair professionally around when I had my first child, when I was like 30. It was kind of to do with the fact that I'm so short. I'm like wicked short, and cutting hair just killed my shoulders and my wrists. But I also developed a chemical sensitivity to all the chemicals that were in the products. So it was just like I needed to do something else. In those last years of my 20s, I started going back to school because I knew this was like I need to find another career path. So I went to school at UMass for sustainable food and farming. I got my bachelor's degree there. While I was getting my bachelor's degree there, I studied from a lot of local herbalists. I think probably one of my favorite and most influential was Brittany Wood Nickerson of Time Herbal. She taught this wild food medicine class and like really dove into the food and the medicine out there, right, available to us. Mm-hmm. And I think that kind of grew my interest more into herbs in that sense, because it was like incorporating these wild foods into my food realm, right? Mm-hmm. And I had found out I had celiac disease in my early 20s. I think I was like 21 when I found out. And so I had to start reading every little label on everything, every product. And I was just like, what the heck is in all of this stuff? So that's kind of when I decided to go back to school as well, to learn about food systems, how our food is made, how it's produced, how we can produce it in a more sustainable manner for us and the planet. And yeah, so I think that's kind of where my love for herbs went, like food, incorporating it into my food, and then like medicinally as well. I ended up getting pretty sick. I had appendicitis, and I think I had like walking appendicitis because I was sick for months and months before I had to get like emergency surgery. But that is when I really started diving into taking herbs more medicinally, as opposed to just, in my food and incorporating it in that aspect. And they definitely helped me like dramatically. And I wanted to be able to help folks as well, not only from, like a food perspective, because yes, I think food is absolutely medicine. Mm-hmm. But I think herbs can also like help to push that healing to the next level,
Absolutely. I love how you talk quick, like there's so much to unpack in all of that. So we're going to have a fun, juicy episode. But how the last statement on like food is medicine and the herbs come along and help. I think this is one thing that I see a lot in our society today as more and more people are seeking herbs to help them. Number one, freaking A, awesome. Let's do it. Right. But
Yeah.
also we need to recognize that the herbs are helpers. If you are going to continue to throw junk into your body that is causing inflammation, those herbs are going to have a really, really hard time helping you out as well as they can. And of course there's herbs for acute symptom management, which is fine and dandy. But in the case of like discovering you have celiacs in your early 20s, like you need to go deeper than just acute symptom management, right?
Yes, there's definitely gut healing that needs to take place and total diet shifts, right? It's a complete lifestyle change, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it definitely is. Can you talk a little bit about how that journey went for you? Or maybe like, even if, do you work with clients? Do you work with people?
Yeah.
Okay. Or how you help people today after walking through that journey and now having all this education and knowledge and experience behind you on healing the gut and using food and plants as medicine.
Totally. So I found out I had celiac disease just from like a simple blood test through my doctor's office, right? I had gone to them complaining about stomach stuff for years and years, done so much testing. They actually weren't going to test me for it. It was something that I had to ask for at that time. They weren't really like accepting of celiac disease as like a diagnosis back then. So one of my sister's friends at the time, she was working out in Boston. She had celiac disease and she's like, it sounds like you have it. Like to my sister, we both have the same symptoms, right? We both have celiac disease, it turns out.
Can you share some of those symptoms real quick?
Yeah.
Sorry.
So some of the symptoms, no worries, because most people don't know this, right? So a lot of the symptoms that I would have when eating gluten are like bloating directly right after eating, like uncomfortable, you're super gassy. Like I would look like I'm 3 months pregnant right after eating, right? Just like IBS symptoms. So either way, you could be constipated for weeks on end. Like sometimes if I were to eat gluten, I would get really constipated for like 2 weeks. Or sometimes it's like excessive the other way, right? So it kind of depends. So, and it depends on where you are in your stage of life too. I feel like it was more on the constipation side as I was younger, now on the opposite side as I've shifted into older ages. So it's interesting how our bodies shift throughout. But so now if I were to go out to eat or something and have some cross-contamination, I would definitely have super bloating. I'd feel nauseous. Now it's gotten so bad that if I have a lot of cross contamination, I will get physically sick. I'll throw up. So definitely anything you could think of with the digestive tract, it's very upset, nauseous. And also things like neurological too, like brain fog is huge. I have memory issues. And also I struggle with, I'm having brain fog right now. Just having clear thoughts. So it's just like, it's this brain fog, and I get a little irritable too after like having gluten. So it definitely affects me. I get rashes as well. I was working at a restaurant for a while I was in college, like making sandwiches and stuff every day. And I would like break out just because I've gotten so sensitive now that I've completely taken it out of my diet. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I feel 100 times better when I'm not eating gluten though. So, and it took me time to start really feeling better though. I did have to take the time to heal my gut. Doing lots of bone broths and eating nourishing foods, and herbs definitely help as well.
Yeah. So thank you for breaking down some of the symptoms that you experienced and that a lot of people do experience. I think it's easy for people to just kind of brush it aside and be like, oh, it was something I ate or what have you, but not to recognize that this is also your body communicating with you saying,
Yeah.
hey, I'm mad. This doesn't work for
This
me.
isn't good for me.
Yeah. And like it's your body's own alarm system going off. And we're just so taught to suppress that and to ignore it or just brush it off as whatever. But when you can actually tune into that is just absolutely huge. And you started talking about some of the steps that you took to actually heal your gut by using bone broths and deep nourishing foods. And what are some of the other things that you did with your diet to work on that process of healing the gut? Hey, I wanted to take a quick pause to show some love and gratitude to our sponsors of the Herbalist Path podcast, who make this show possible for me and possible for you too. So here it goes. Medicinal mushrooms are all the rage these days, if you didn't know already. And with great reason, because they are powerful medicine that can improve your health and your life in so many different ways when they're well made. Yeah, it's true. There's a lot of stuff on the market that isn't going to be so effective. And that's why you need to find a brand that you can actually trust. For me, that brand is Whole Sun Wellness, and this is the creation of a brilliant woman and fellow mama, Jamie Bonfiglio. She's an international mushroom educator that has been working in the medicinal mushroom industry for years. And this is when she saw firsthand how many other companies take shortcuts when it comes to their products. And Jamie wasn't having it. She set out to build her company the right way. Whole Sun Wellness is here to raise the industry standards so those crap mushrooms on the market aren't getting into your body or your family's body. Whole Sun Wellness is the first company to test and report nutritional facts for all of their extracts. They go beyond industry standards every step of the way, from sourcing to extraction and final testing. And as the owners of the largest medicinal mushroom farm in the United States, Whole Sun Wellness is taking control of their supply chain for the highest quality and absolute full transparency. They're even the first company to include pure mycelium extract in every single product. So when you're thinking of getting medicinal mushrooms for you and your family, Whole Sun Wellness is exactly the ones you want. Also, be sure to check out their new Mycolites. These are the world's first dissolvable electrolyte tablets. They're featuring functional mushroom extracts that'll give you more energy, more stamina, and recovery as well. And who couldn't use all of that? The other thing is they are these adorable little mushroom-shaped tablets, and they come in like a little Altoids box, but way cooler than Altoids because they're Mycolites. Anyways, head to wholesunwellness.com to grab yourself some Mycolites and all of the other functional medicinal mushrooms that you and your family need. And of course, you can grab that link right here in the show notes now.
Yeah. So I guess like when I first found out, it was just like, gotta read every single label, gotta look into like, what is all this stuff? Is this one ingredient safe for me? Checking to see, if these food additives that they add to certain things are gluten-free or not. Right. And then that kind of spawned into like, well, what is this stuff? And do I want to be eating it anyways? And then, led me down to eating more of a whole foods diet. So, shopping the outskirts of the grocery store, trying not to eat those processed foods and then it takes the guesswork out of it for me, like I know there's not gluten in apples and produce, right?
Right.
And they're much more healing on the body as well, right?
And so much more nutrient rich. And that brings me to so this was what, 10 plus years ago or so for you. So it wasn't so much the rage to see all these gluten-free and keto and all of these pre-packaged foods that
have any of that.
Right. And while it can be exciting for somebody who's just recognizing they need to make these shifts, can we just talk a little bit about what's going on in those foods? And there's some that are decent. There's a lot that are absolute filler crap also.
Yes. I agree. Yeah. So there's quite a few things to maybe unpack on that topic, right? Mm-hmm. So there's the junk additives that they're adding to it. There's the issue of different gums that they're using them that can mess up guts too, right? So
and make your poop so sticky.
Yes, gore gum, things like that can upset an upset stomach, like somebody that has leaky gut. That's probably maybe not a great thing for. So then there's, all these things to do with so much rice flour, because so much of the gluten-free stuff is white rice flour. And I'm not saying that rice is a bad thing, but from a environmental standpoint and from a nutritional standpoint, it's not the best grain for us to be consuming consistently and regularly. Rice is something that it uptakes and bioaccumulates arsenic from the soil. So that's a heavy metal that's known to cause lots of neurological stuff, and it's really not good for us. So the one good thing about white rice is that the outside hull, which is like brown rice, when you take that outside hull off, you're losing the nutrients, but you're also losing a lot of the arsenic that could have bioaccumulated in it. So in some ways it's somewhat good, right? And in some ways it's not good because you're losing all of the nutritional properties to the rice, which rice isn't super nutrient dense anyways, as opposed to other grains that as celiac, I couldn't eat anyway, right? Mm-hmm. But rice is also really environmentally degrading, and it's hard on the environment. It also causes methane to be released in the atmosphere. So it's probably one of the highest greenhouse emitting products in the grain realm. Actually, it's pretty up there. So if we're looking at a sustainability perspective in our diet, it's probably one of the worst ones for climate change and global warming. Methane is I forget the amount. It's 20 times the amount of CO2, or I could be wrong. I'm forgetting the exact, but it's way more potent of a greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide is. So when we're thinking about diet, it's not very nutritional a lot of the time, a lot of these gluten-free replacements, and they're filled with lots of, the gums, but also preservatives, salts, things like that, sugars that don't necessarily need to be added, but are added for shelf stability and taste because we've gotten so accustomed to the way things taste.
So that you're right. There's so much to unpack there. I didn't know that all about rice being so not environmentally friendly. So that's really fascinating. And it's brilliant marketers out there. They're like, hey, look, we can make a buck off of this whole demographic of humans that are now recognizing that gut health really matters. And that, yes, gluten can either, a lot of people have sensitivities. Other people are fully celiac. So a big game of marketing hullabaloo I see out there. And you said it right. Let's stick to the whole foods, the real food.
Yeah.
And so you are a mama, and moms don't have much for time in life. And we want nothing but the best for our families. And how can you like some ideas for moms, because the show, I talked to a lot of mamas on here that may be looking to feed their families much more nourishing foods. They see the convenient stuff in the grocery stores that always have an astronomical price tag anyways. What can they do to incorporate more wholesome foods into their family, considering time and financial budgets?
I hear that. That is the challenge, isn't it? That's
Yes.
like the challenge of the day. It's tough because kids have grown accustomed to a lot of our bad food choices a lot of the times, or they favor sweets, right? So with my kids, I know just having lots of fresh fruit on hand is a big thing to have. They'll always eat, raspberries or black raspberries or, things like that they can just pop in their mouths on the go. But it's hard to have it on hand all the time as well. So I like to stock up on, frozen fruits as well and make smoothies. Smoothies is actually one of the ways that I get a lot of veggies in my kids, because they're pretty prone to have a fight with me about something if they can see vegetables in it. So at least you're hiding the kale or spinach or greens or carrots, whatever it is you're throwing in there, And I also really love to incorporate my herbal infusions in there as well. It's like a great way to hide that. So kids aren't like, oh, I'm taking my tea when I don't really like tea. That's my son. He doesn't like tea. So it's a great way to hide it.
Absolutely. A really great way to hide it. When I had an herbal apothecary tea and smoothie shop, and I opened it in 2016 because I wanted to bring herbs to people, but I knew that most people didn't really understand herbal medicine as a way of healing back then. It certainly exploded in astronomical ways over the past few years, which is awesome. But I also knew, I live in a fairly rural area, but it's a very touristy area. I knew people could resonate with smoothies. They'd be like, oh, I know what a smoothie is. And I made smoothies with organic produce, and we made our own nut milks in-house there. And I didn't add in ice to fill it up. It was cold because we had frozen produce in it, and it was real food. And we would bring the herbs into that. I knew that was a way to make herbal medicine really tasty, because herbs work a lot better when you actually use them, right?
Yes.
It's so weird.
Say we can use all these herbs, but if you're not actually going to incorporate it into you in some way, then it's not going to help you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's an awesome tip. I love that. Can we go back a little bit on gut healing? And we've talked about food for that, because without making those dietary shifts, the gut healing is not going to happen straight up. But once you're willing to make those lifestyle shifts and choices, and, you've gotten to that stage of life when you're like, okay, this is what I need to do. What kind of herbs have you found to be very, very helpful in that whole process? Hey, I wanted to take a quick pause to show some love and gratitude to our sponsors of the Herbalist Path podcast, who make this show possible for me and possible for you too. So here it goes. I love this time of year. It's spring, the sun is shining, and all of our beautiful plant friends are popping up. It's amazing. Unless, of course, you're one of the millions of people who suffer from seasonal allergies. The itchy, watery eyes, the sneezing and wheezing that's straight miserable. Thankfully, there are some amazing herbs that can help you with all of that. Just like the herbs inside of Kick-Ass Allergy from Wish Garden Herbs, one of my absolute favorite herbal companies out there. Kick-Ass Allergy, yes, I said ask without the K at the end. Anyways, this formula has yerba santa, nettles, echinacea for that immune support, and orange peels, all which come together to help dry up those excessive mucosal secretions. Yep, I'm talking about the sniffles and the stuffy nose, the watery eyes, and all that jazz. This blend also acts as a great expectorant and can help ease the swelling and inflammation in those mucosal tissues. It is a top go-to for seasonal allergies. And get this, they combine all those beautiful herbs with glycerin, so it actually tastes pretty darn good. Or should I say, it tastes kick-ass, without the K at the end. Anyways, if allergy season is miserable for you and you want a natural remedy that actually works for those itchy eyes and being all sneezy and wheezy, you have got to check out Wish Garden Herbs Kick-Ass Allergy. And for those of you with the little kiddos, no sweat. They've got a kick it allergy too. And you pregnant mamas, you don't have to suffer either. They've got a kick-ass allergy formula just for you. So head over to wishgardenherbs.com or check out the link in the show notes and go grab yourself some kick-ass allergy so you can enjoy spring again.
Yeah, so I think for me, it was great that I found out that I had celiac disease in a very direct way. I typically suggest for folks that come and see me as clients to maybe do an elimination diet to help us to figure out what culprit it is, because just because I have some symptoms doesn't mean that the same symptoms as you doesn't mean that you have a gluten allergy like me. You could have a dairy sensitivity or something else, or egg or soy or other things. So I think finding out the culprit for you and figuring out what works for your diet is key first, right?
Absolutely.
You can't just throw herbs on an angry tummy and hope it gets better, because it probably won't. But some great herbs that I incorporate into my routine daily are marshmallow. You can use the whole marshmallow plant, so leaves, roots. Typically, most preparations are the root, but I grow marshmallow, so I'll use the leaves and things as well.
Such a pretty plant to have on your land.
I love using it in so many ways, bouquets and everything. So that's an amazing herb because its mucilaginous qualities help to like coat, say if you are a like fiery pita like me that has acid reflux a lot, it's great to soothe and coat that, but also helps to like coat the intestinal tract. So any sort of IBS symptoms, great for that. Helps to keep you sort of more regular, right? Instead of at the extremes. Another herb that I love and use regularly is meadowsweet. That's another one for that, the heartburn. I had some issues with H. pylori, so that causes peptic ulcers and things like that. So meadowsweet is great at soothing ulcers, calming things down, and relieving some of the pain that can be associated with gastrointestinal issues. So that one's a big one in my realm. I definitely do tincture and tea of that one daily. And then I do a lot of liver supporting herbs as well, because the liver and gut and mind and all the things are connected, but those two are probably really closely tied together, right? We need to have all those liver juices to help us digest our foods properly.
Absolutely.
So I like to focus a lot on like dandelion root and turmeric and other liver supporting herbs as well.
I love that list of herbs. Have you worked with licorice for your H. pylori?
I have to a degree. I am one that holds weight, like water weight. So I can't really do the licorice root because it makes me retain water. And I guess I have tried the DGL?
Glycerized. That's such a hard word.
It's such a hard word to say.
Yeah.
So I have tried that because it's supposed to reduce that risk of, retaining more water. But I've found other herbs that work well, like slippery elm and other things that aren't going to make me retain that water so much.
Awesome. Yeah. And that's another thing to mention, the herbs that you are talking about are absolutely herbs I recommend when I'm working with people as well. But to also recognize that sometimes that herb may not be the one for you, and to really pay attention again, is your body telling you something, and really tune in and listen. And it's okay if that herb is not the one for you, because there's so many others. Yeah.
That's the thing, right? It's as an herbalist, I'm constantly getting, well, I've heard that this herb's so great for this, but it didn't work for me, And it's well, it's because everybody's constitutionally different. Our makeups are different. We all require different things,
Yeah.
So because for the most of the time, licorice works really great for acid reflux and all of these things, doesn't mean it's going to work great on my body, right?
Right. Absolutely. That is so true. As an herbalist, we're basically detectives for people. A lot of people, I think, with social media and this explosion of herbalism today, I'm not sure if it was 2020 hit and people were like, oh, I suddenly have no trust in our government and the pharmaceutical industry. So all the herbs. And then you just see these memes and these videos of this is the one herb to do all these things. And it's awesome. We need more people to turn to herbal medicine, because one of the reasons I do this is for my deep love for the planet, which is why I'm so excited to talk with you. And I have this belief, and maybe you do too, that the more people that turn to plant medicine, the better off our planet is, for a whole host of reasons. And I want to get back to this subject, but I want to also turn it back to oh goodness, talk about that brain fog and forgetting things. But we were talking about how an herb may not be the right one for you, and how they get glorified on social media today. And people do come to me as well as an herbalist, this one herb is great for this one thing. And you just I just want to put a huge billboard for the world that one herb is not going to fix everybody. Yeah. And, oftentimes there are about 10 to 15 other awesome medicinal things you're missing out of that one herb, because you glorified it for that one thing.
Yes, I agree. Yes.
So it's more complex than people want it to be, yet it's simple.
Yes.
Interesting.
I love it. I mean, I always love that people are knowing about herbs, because like you said, it's it's becoming more and more popular, and more people are turning towards it. Right. Mm-hmm. And I think definitely 2020 had a big push in that direction. Right.
Yeah.
But there isn't just one herb that's going to probably heal everything that's wrong with the whole population, right? Or even everything that's wrong with you. One herb probably isn't going to solve everything that's going on in your body necessarily. They might be able to hit quite a few different tasks, right? But there's not just one simple thing to take, that's going to be the magic bullet or silver bullet, whatever it's called.
Absolutely. And that's exactly it right there. I feel like I put myself on repeat on that regularly. Hey, this is great. Everybody should use plants as medicine. And please understand that they're, a little more complex. And I think one of the reasons I want people to understand that is because once they do, they will be able to find the herbs that are right for them, that really have true transformational properties for you and your unique body and your unique symptoms, so that you aren't then running back to the drugstore for all the toxic, nasty crap that's not only bad for your body, but more importantly to me, I love you all, bad for our planet.
Yes.
And I feel like I can talk and open up this can of worms on the sustainability of plant medicine for our planet versus, everything within the pharmaceutical industry. And not to say that pharmaceuticals aren't needed at times. They absolutely are.
Yes.
But it's also a completely overused, misused, and abused system in so many corrupt ways. It's unbelievable. And one of the big things for me is I love this earth, and this earth is crying. This earth is shouting, just like our guts do. Hey, this is not right. And I'm mad.
Problem here.
Yeah. So
Yep.
like, I'd just love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so I have a master's in sustainability science where I focused on sustainable agriculture, but I really focused on a lot of all the things to do with sustainability, because sustainability isn't all just about environmental aspects, right? There's 3 tiers to sustainability, and environmental aspects are just one of them, right? And I think that's sometimes where a lot of people get pigeonholed, is just in this one little environmental spot. And yes, that's super important. And I am an environmentalist, and so I'm in that group a lot of the times. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of other things that we need to factor into sustainability. And it's like cultural things, right? Our environment, how we interact as a society within the environment. But also like the people, right? So people are big, and like if putting the sustainability of the earth over people happens, that's also not good. And that's also not sustainable, right? Mm-hmm. So it's looking at all these different lenses to figure out what is truly sustainable. So I kind of went off on a little tangent there, and I forgot where I was going with that.
We're just talking about sustainability and the fact of yes, we need to heal our own unique individual bodies and also the planet. And one of the reasons I got into herbalism is because it's the one little way that I feel I can do my part to save this planet. And you were starting to talk about how sustainability is so much more than just the environmental factors. And I was bringing up some of the pharmaceutical industries, big pollutants and such. Yeah.
Okay. So I think that, so there's a great shift, because whether we know it or realize it or not, the pharmaceutical company derives a lot of their medicines from plants. So either they get them from strange, faraway places, or they just basically isolate certain aspects of a plant to make a medicine out of that one certain teeny part of a plant that doesn't fully encompass all the aspects of the plant, right?
Yep.
To get medicine that does XYZ. So realistically, in this world, even if we're thinking about conventional medicine, sustainability is important, because even conventional medicine relies on plants to help save our lives, right? Mm-hmm. So it's really detrimental to save a lot of these old growth forests and try to be as sustainable as possible, because if we're going to destroy, rainforests, there's potential life-saving medicine that they're destroying there, in addition to, all of the negative health impacts that, losing rainforests have on our planet. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think we're also seeing a shift, just environmentally, a shift, because we're losing a lot of our rainforest and plant life around the globe. I took a whole college course in getting my master's about how these environmental atrocities essentially are causing more viruses to become rampant, and more things like the coronavirus could eventually happen because of this deforestation, because we're essentially driving wildlife out of their habitat and they have nowhere to go. Right. So animal, human, diseases are going to become more prevalent. They're going to be jumping from one species to the next, is what they're predicting to happen with climate change and the loss of all these forests and things. So we really need to think about sustainability, not only saving forests. But like when we're buying our things every day, we have choices that we can make. Obviously we can't necessarily individually stop deforestation from happening, but the choices that we make in our products every day can make impacts to lessen that effect, right? Simply buying something that doesn't have palm oil in it or sodium lauryl sulfate or stuff that's derived from palm oil that's, causing a lot of this deforestation to happen in the first place is key. But also, I love the shift of like people being more into herbs, because then they're going to want to grow herbs and they're going to want to grow things more, and people have more gardens and be more self-sufficient like we once were, and not have to rely on this global system of, somewhat corruption and not necessarily the best things, right?
Yeah. And hopefully as they grow these things and see these, they get that deeper connection to nature and a stronger desire to do their part to protect it and make wise decisions.
100%.
Yeah. That's my hope in it all. Often, I'm a dreamer, but I see the shifts happening, and all we can do is start with ourselves.
100%. I love to try to think that I can change everybody's minds, but as I've gotten older, I've realized that, I can plant a seed. Maybe you'll think about it. Maybe you'll think I'm crazy. And at least I planted that seed. Whether you nurture it and fertilize it and bloom and watch it grow is up to you, but I can at least plant the seed of, this is what's happening. And here's some things that you can do to make a change if you feel like making that change, because that's what it's personal will, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, it is. And I also like to think that I can change the world with my voice, but it doesn't happen that way. So again, it's like I do my one little part that I know well to make a difference. And as long as I know in my heart that I've made an impact on one person who maybe has spread that to another person and another person, then I'm doing my part as best as I can. It's challenging though. And I want to just talk quickly about, well, not that quickly, as long as you want, about planting that seed, because you run Mother Hen's Homestead. And I want to hear, we've talked so much about, gut health and healing the gut and food and plants as medicine and the sustainability of our planet. Like I could talk to you for decades on all of this stuff, but I want to hear about you and what you do and your homestead and like how that came about and how you help people.
Sure. Thanks. So I own a little small farm and apothecary that I call Mother Hen's Homestead. It started out as just like a little farm. I wanted to try to, become more sustainable, live off the land, maybe sort of, eventually earn an income off of it as well, which is the goal, right?
Right.
But be able to thrive and live off of my little plot of land. So we try to use all sustainable and regenerative practices. So I don't till the land. I don't use any chemical fertilizers, pesticides, anything like that. So it started out me just growing veggies and culinary herbs and flowers. And then I eventually, noticed all of these medicinal herbs that are just growing here naturally, right? I've got like an abundance of violets and goldenrod and yarrow that just like are here, and they're like, use me. What are you doing?
Yeah, totally.
To help. So I started to use them more and incorporate them more and more. And I was turning to a lot of the people, the herbalists that I studied with at my undergrad. And then I eventually went to the Herbal Academy to get my advanced clinical certificate through them. But I'm totally going off of track again and forgetting where I'm going with this.
We're just talking about the awesome things you do with your homestead.
So like, as I've incorporated more and more herbs in, focusing more and more on herbal health, I work with clients as an herbal practitioner. So I help you figure out, what it's going on in your body to create that equilibrium. But I think a big part of what I love to do most is educate my community. I'm a big educator. I love teaching on herbs, on sustainability, on gardening, on all those things that we have been talking about.
It's so much fun.
Yeah. I was teaching a course at UMass while getting my master's called Understanding Food and Climate. So, how food and sustainability and climate change are all connected. So I love to talk about, all of these things. So education is really big for me. So I do lots of workshops on the homestead and at different local businesses.
Fun. What state are you in? Are you in Massachusetts?
Massachusetts, yeah.
Nice.
So I've got a little, this little farm out in Royalston, Massachusetts. So I like to work with a lot of local holistic health practitioners. I frequently offer workshops at a local yoga studio and sell my products that I make there as well. Also make herbal products, like body, home, and wellness products, and like botanical crafts, because, I love to utilize all the plants in all ways.
There's so many fun ways to get creative and make so many beneficial things for people. It's unbelievable. I love what you're doing because it's resonates with everything that I've done as well so loudly. It's amazing. I had a question. Oh yeah. One, can people find you? Do you have a website for people to find you?
I do. Yeah. So my website's pretty easy, motherhenshomestead.com. So pretty simple there. You can pretty much sign up for workshops. You can get a consultation through there. You can buy my products. You can learn a little bit more about what I'm doing, where I'm at, and stuff like that over on social media. I like what workshops I'm offering. I also host some wellness-based events too. Some of them are free and open to the public. Some of them are more like retreats where it's like a daytime retreat and you're learning and you're healing and you're eating nourishing foods, those types of things. I kind of encompass it all, do pop-ups here and there. I don't have a shop yet. That was something that I was going to do this past year, but with the economy, I was like, I'm going to maybe hold off on that one for a minute.
It's easy to want to do all of the things and just be that like multifaceted herbalist, business person, and all of that. Like you really do have to incorporate it all if you're going to make a living to support your family. It becomes challenging to do, but so rewarding to make such a positive.
My job. So
yeah, it's
great.
so good. It's so good. I want to ask you, so like sometimes that question of like, where do we find you is something I'll do at the very end, but not today, kids. So we've talked a bit about herbs, right? This is the herbalist path. We love herbs. If you could recommend one herb that everybody should know, or maybe your favorite herb. I know a favorite herb is really hard. Then I'm going to make you try it.
So I love all herbs, but I think that I'll say one of my favorite herbs because I have to pick one. Mm-hmm. I have lots of favorite herbs. So the one I think I would suggest most to folks is yarrow.
I was just out with yarrow yesterday. I have it in my garden, but I love it so much in the wild. It just smells so much better in the wild versus what's in my garden. But carry on.
Cultivated is not as pungent, right? Mm-hmm. Yes. Yarrow. I think I I would recommend that to everybody, just because I know in my bioregion anyways, it's abundant, right? Everybody should have some accessibility to it. It grows pretty well everywhere. But it's such a useful herb and can be used in so many ways. I think before, when we were chatting and weren't recording, we were talking about your first aid kit. And I also make an herbal first aid kit. And that's one of the herbs that is highlighted in that because, it stops bleeding instantly, pretty much. It's great first aid herb. It's an amazing skin herb. It helps to clean and heal wounds and also helps to create those healthy boundaries that we need in our lives, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, I think that would be mine.
That's a great one. I also love yarrow so much, and picking one herb is impossible. I know this. But it's still such a fun thing to ask people, like, what would you choose? And you're right. Yarrow just has so many amazing healing properties, and it's such a brilliant plant. Like, one of the things I love about it is not only will it stop your bleeding, but if you are a woman and you're experiencing stuck menses, you haven't bled, and you're not, menopausal or pregnant, and you haven't bled for a few extra weeks or months, you can turn to yarrow, and it's so smart. It will know to help you start bleeding. Like,
so crazy.
What a brilliant, how is it so smart? I love it. Yeah. And it's also a great one to have around for cold and flu season because it's a great diaphoretic. And
it's always in my daughter's tea. Whenever she gets sick, she always asks me for her tea. I usually make yarrow, catnip, and chamomile tea when she's sick. So
lovely. That's awesome. That is amazing. Well, if you had some words of wisdom for a mom out there who's just starting on this like natural, holistic lifestyle journey right now, what words of wisdom would you give them?
I think for me, when I was first diving into it, it's so overwhelming, right? It's really easy to get super overwhelmed and just be like, oh my God, I give up. There's too much to know about all these things. And it can feel very overwhelming. Just take one thing at a time. Say you're wanting to learn more about natural healing and herbs, start dabbling into some herbal blogs or, watch somebody that you like on YouTube or something, I have some free little things over on YouTube that you can go watch too. So it's just like taking it piece by piece. For me, I just like went and dove in head first and like got so overwhelmed and was like, oh my God, what am I going to use on myself and my babies? And oh my God, you know what I mean? It's so overwhelming. So just start with one thing at a time.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant.
Yeah. If it's like you're worried about what you're putting on your baby, start there. And then, branch out once you've gotten that straightened out, you know what I mean? So if you're looking for products for diaper rash or whatever it may be, like searching for the best product can be overwhelming, or like trying to figure out what you're using is safe on your baby can also be overwhelming, right? So yeah, there's lots of great blogs I found, like when I was first sort of diving into these things that are free and attainable to most folks. So I think those are probably where I'd start. But it's super easy to get overwhelmed.
It is easy to get overwhelmed. And you're right. Just taking it one thing at a time, and don't fall into the shame trap. You can start learning it and then feel guilty that you're not able to be perfect with it all the time. Like, life happens. Just jump back on.
Herbalist and I studied sustainable food, and
Right.
I'll beat myself up too for making a misgiving on some food choice or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not worth it to shame yourself or to be feeling guilty because you didn't know better before. Too, there's like this whole guilt shame spiral sometimes that can come along with it, right?
Absolutely.
So just we're all learning, we're all growing. It's one thing at a time.
Yeah, absolutely. Beautiful. I love that. That's great words of wisdom to end this show on. So I want to make sure that everybody can find you at motherhenshomestead.com. And are you Mother Hens Homestead on all the social channels too?
I am. Yeah. On Instagram, I'm Mother Hens Homestead Apothecary.
Okay.
And Facebook, I ended up getting hacked a few months ago this past winter. So there is a new Facebook page. So if you go to that one's more relevant. It's got a green background, but it's Mother Hens Homestead. You'll be able to spot me.
Awesome. And of course, we will link to all of that in the show notes as well. So thank you so much, Megan. I would love to hang out and chat more. Again, like I said, I could talk about this stuff for decades with you.
Totally.
That's why I have a podcast on it. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day and sharing your wisdom and your insight with everybody that's listening right now. And if you're listening, thank you for listening, and go check out what Megan's doing.
Well, thank you so much. It was great chatting with you. And I could also talk about it for a decade.
Awesome. Have a beautiful day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning into another episode of The Herbalist Path. Being on this journey with you is absolutely incredible. If you dig this episode, please leave me a review on your favorite podcast player and share it with your friends so that together we can make herbalism #spread like wildflowers. On another note, I must mention that while I know you're getting some good info here, it's important to remember that this podcast is purely for entertainment and educational purposes and is not intended to be a substitute for medical treatment. While the information in this podcast is absolutely relevant, herbs work differently for each person and each condition. That's why I recommend you work with a qualified practitioner, whether that be another herbalist, a naturopath, or your doctor. So thank you again. I am truly honored that you're tuning into these episodes and on the path with me to make sure that there's an herbalist in every home again. Don't forget to share this episode with your friends so that we can make herbalism #spread like wildflowers. It has been so much fun and so, joyous watching all of my medicinal plant friends popping up in my garden, from the elecampane to the comfrey and the arnica. I love seeing these friends pop up. And if you are still trying to decide what to grow in your medicinal herb garden, you've got to grab my guide. It's all about the most essential herbs that every mom should know and should grow. So I teach you how to grow them and the many different ways that you can use them. If you want to grab the guide, go ahead. It's free, and I'm pretty sure you're going to get a lot of delight and use out of it. And there's a link to it in the show notes. I'm wishing you tons of happy medicine planting.